Welcome back to the Just Men podcast, a podcast about everything manhood and masculinity. I'm one of your hosts, Jeremy, and this is my co-host,
Byron Rose Kelly.
Welcome back, Byron. Thanks for joining me on this wonderful adventure.
Oh, it's good to be here.
So today, what are we talking about today, Byron?
Oh, well, we have quite the interesting topic to go through. Conflict resolution.
Ooh.
Oh, because there are times when you get a bit heated as a guy, and you just... How do you deal with it, Jeremy? This is the question that we're going to answer.
Yeah. Hopefully. What do? Do we get angry to show off our manhood? Do we get a little bit softer to show our empathetic side? Where do we go? What's the balance? That's what we're talking about today. But before we dive right into our episode, as usual, just a little self-plug for ourselves. If you guys have been listening for a little while, or maybe this is the first time you're listening to us, welcome. If you enjoy our vibe, if you enjoy the value that we're providing to you guys on a weekly basis, feel free to consider joining our Patreon. Our Patreon is where you can just say thank you, buy us a cup of coffee a month, and we're trying to build a little community of healthy, like-minded people who just want to grow themselves and become the best version of themselves. So, yeah, if you're looking to support us, please feel free to check us out on our Patreon at Just Men Podcast on Patreon or on the link in the description below. Okay?
Heck yeah.
Now, Byron, let's take it away. Getting straight into the topic about conflict resolution as a man.
Yes.
First of all, why is conflict actually important? It's going to happen to us one way or another. So why is it important?
Well, Jeremy, I think it'd be nice if, and perhaps it'd be a bit of a utopia type world if there was never any instance where, we didn't have to stand up for ourselves, or we didn't have to point out the injustices and things that may occur. But we don't live in that world. And in fact, a little bit of, I was going to say aggression, but it's not necessarily about being aggressive. It's not even really about it being assertive. A little bit of conflict is actually not a bad thing, right? And being able to handle that and go through those scenarios in a healthy way, it is beneficial for a whole host of reasons. So one, it means that you're never being put down in terms of perhaps you miss out on things, perhaps people don't treat you with respect and all that sort of stuff. Two, it helps you have conversations with people about how to be better, do things better, and really make sure that everybody has a chance to grow, because you can grow during it as well.
Absolutely.
And then I think three, it's a case of, we want to keep trying to improve.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that the stuff that we're passionate about isn't pushed to the wayside, and without a little bit of conflict, that can never happen. So
sounds perfect and spot on. So it in essence, it helps us grow, being able to, I guess, both admit to when we're wrong and also have people point out when we are wrong. We're either going to agree with it, we're going to disagree with it, we could take it on board, our ego could protect us and say, no, you're wrong, and lash out. But I think you made a really good point that conflicts or disagreements, they happen. Sometimes for a very good reason, it helps us grow. And sometimes because it's quite simply a clash of values or a clash of morals. And it kind of shows where we stand with particular people who might have values or morals which differ from ours. Yeah. And again, it's a place where we can either connect and grow closer, or it's going to be one of those moments which shows, we're not actually going to get along as people at the end of the day. So
yeah, and I think it's really important in different facets of your life, right? Because a lot of the time we think about conflict or arguments and stuff in terms of personal relationships. So maybe a partner or a friend or whatever. Maybe the random on the street has got a problem with the way that you parked your car, and that becomes a deal.
Yep.
But in a professional sense, it's really important as well. And I think when you start to look at how people move, because I came from a corporate background, right? And then how people move through the ranks in the corporate scene, sometimes it's not always about, you do a good job and you would just be rewarded, right? On occasion, you have to be able to present yourself and then create that tension and go and actually talk to the people who do not yet know your value. And that's a mini conflict in and of itself, right? You're like, hello, I'm not being valued the way I think I should be, and I want to have that discussion. And it's how you go about that I think really makes a big difference. So I'm ready. I'm excited.
Because it's you. I bet both you and I in our lifetimes have been through different conflicts with different people, and I'm sure if you're listening in, you yourself have been through different conflicts with different people.
I will bet every dollar I own that people have had conflict in their life.
And if you say, oh no, I get along with everyone, you're lying. you're lying to us, because everyone has conflict, whether we seek it out or not. It's going to happen to us. And
Yes.
so I think it's really important to know the best way to approach these situations when they do occur. Obviously, we're not going to be perfect every time, but we can always learn from when we did screw up and take it into the next time that it does occur, whether we want to or not. So, Brian, in your experience, let's start from the start. So, what are some common errors or some common pitfalls that most people make? Let's say particularly guys when it comes to handling conflict resolution. And let's just say all-encompassing for now. So it could be intimate relationships, friendships with family, even with people at work, or the guy who's double parked on the roadside who sucks. What do you think are some of the common mistakes that guys make, particularly when it comes to approaching conflict?
Well, really simply, it's I think a lack of emotional regulation at times, or awareness of how we're feeling, and then how that feeling translates to action. So, like for the most part, and I mean, actually, it's two-sided, I think, because you'll have people who are more prone towards lashing out and acting on, that frustration or that anger or, whatever it is that they're feeling that makes them, you get that like, oh, I'm going to do something about this. And then on the other side of things, I think people who have perhaps had experiences with that aggressive behavior and really shy away from it, they almost go the complete opposite, where they're almost docile in nature and avoid everything. Right. And so never want to stand up for themselves, never want to argue the point. And then as a result, people sometimes just walk all over them. So I think the big pitfalls are just a lack of awareness of what it is that we're feeling, that mental check in terms of before I approach a situation, or if I'm getting into a situation or I'm in a situation, what to actually do. And then, the last part of that is afterward, if you've gone through any sort of conflict, how do you then, dissect and break down and then realize that, do a bit of self-reflection. Did I handle that correctly? So that's what I would say the common ones are.
No, that's great. Those are great. I think those are the most common parts. And let's try to break it down into little bits, because I think each kind of problem in itself requires its own discussion. So we've got being too aggressive. You've also got not being aggressive enough or being too passive, right? And I think just a third one I'd kind of like to add on to that as well is, I think this is probably going even further into it, but trying to become empathetic and see where the other person is coming from. And so that will help you manage or change the way that you act to get a better outcome for everybody. So it may or may not be applicable in every situation, obviously, but I think what you mentioned first is being too aggressive or being too passive are probably the two big ones, I suppose. And it can be hard to know where to kind of sit yourself, because I think it is like a bit of a sliding scale. You've got the side of being way too aggressive, and you've got the side of being way too passive. And I think most of the time the answer lies somewhere in the middle.
Definitely.
Kind of lying to each side. So now let's start off with aggression, because I think the fun one. Being angry or aggressive, or being like, I need to take control of the situation. Sure, I'm like the alpha male who's in control of the situation. And, I think it's a bit laughable when people say, women are too emotional, when anger itself is an emotion in itself, and it's something that guys are very quick to go to.
Very prone to.
Is get very angry, right?
Yeah.
So let's say that something happens. Maybe it's your fault, and maybe it's not your fault.
It's never my fault, man.
Oh, never my fault. What if you feel? Actually, Byron, I should ask: do you feel like you're someone who, when a situation arises, what's your natural state? Do you feel like you're someone who typically leans towards being a little bit more angry, or a little bit more, or maybe I should try and avoid the situation? How do you feel personally that you respond to it?
My natural inclination is I can get heated quickly. And it's taken many, many years for me to not just default to that pathway. Like, if somebody wrongs me, my first instinct is, and you get really fired up.
Yeah.
And the best indication of that is when I'm driving and I'm like, what is this idiot doing? You know, they don't know how to do the speed limit. They can't stay within the lines.
I've driven with you through the CBD before. I've seen
it's an experience, right?
I can relate. I can get angry in my own little zone. So
Yes, yeah. And it's funny because I never really considered how that behavior kind of translates to elsewhere. Or if I've just used the car as a bit of a safe space because I know no one else is actually involved apart from you poor souls sitting in the car. So like I am slowly starting to work on that. But generally speaking, I have been prone to getting fired up about something. And I get really like passionate about it. And that is it's a tricky one sometimes because you get this righteous fury, right? And you're like, oh, I need to show them.
Yeah.
But in reality, I have done, and especially when you're talking to people you care about, I've worked really hard to make sure that I have a mental check.
Okay.
And I can think about how my actions are being perceived and how they are affecting others.
Mm-hmm.
And am I really actually that certain that I'm right?
Yep.
Or in the right here? And am I really sure that it's worth me being like this? Like this emotional and energetic toll of being a heightened, aggressive human being. Is it worth anything? Like if I'm going to war and I'm fighting a battle, then let the aggression run. Like you're fighting for your life.
Yes.
But in 99% of situations, I'm not fighting for my life here. And I don't need that level of aggression for any of it. So, but that's me, man. What about you?
Me?
Yeah.
It depends on the situation, but I think most of the time I'm probably the opposite. I feel like I would try to shy away from something or try to not get involved in it in the first place. I definitely know where that comes from. When I was younger, especially because I went to an all-boys school, I skipped a grade when I was younger because I was a little bit smart. So I was always doing things with guys a year older than me. And in the big scheme of things, doesn't really count for much. But when you're young and going through puberty and a teenager, 1 year of physical and emotional development is quite a big jump, right?
Yeah.
So because I was a year younger, I'm also built not naturally quite big. I'm on the skinny side. Obviously, I would not really win any conflict or physical altercations in that way. So the advice my parents gave to me, and bless their souls, it was at the time probably the best thing to do was if there's a conflict happening, literally just walk away. Just don't even engage. And that did actually carry with me for a lot of my life up until I realized it was a bit of a problem. I had to address it. So I kind of shy the other way. So we'll get into my side of things when we get to that part of the discussion. But with anger coming into it, a really good, because I'm not perfect either. Same thing. I'm on the road. I'm not the perfect driver, but I consider myself, hey, you know what? I follow the rules pretty well. I indicate and merge politely, and I let people in, and I never double park. I always like to try that. And I've never hit any wildlife when I've been driving. I always slow down for the ducks and the possums. So but another big one is League of Legends, where I think the second you mention this game in particular, people are like, oh, this guy, that's a red flag. Toxic man. Here we go.
Here he is.
You can look at, I don't know if you can pull up my chat history for every game I've ever played, and you will not honestly really find a time in which I'm swearing at someone or going off at someone. If someone else is being abusive, I will put them in their place. It's like, dude, do you like people? Do you like women? Because you really don't sound like it at this point in time. And most of the time in that game, it's a culture in itself. I typically will just block them and move on because there's some people who can't be helped, unfortunately.
Nope.
But one good thing, actually, I'll make 2 points here. So one good thing I did learn, where was it? It was either some book I read somewhere or someone I ran across a TikTok somewhere. And because we always think about, okay, if I'm angry now, maybe I can like come back to it later and resolve it even after I've, said things I regretted. I think the big thing that a lot of guys in particular will have to learn to do over time, because it's not something that can be done overnight. It's definitely something that, like you mentioned, needs to come through self-regulation and self-awareness, is to prevent it before it even happens.
Yeah.
A big example that I learnt was, maybe you've heard of it before, was a father talking to his son. And he had a really big anger problem. And he'd lash out, he'd hit other kids, he'd do all these kinds of things. And his father kind of came along and had a talk to him. Good parenting, by the way. He said, okay, look, son, whenever you get angry, whenever you're really, really angry, before you lash out or hit anyone or do anything like that, I want you to come over to this fence in the backyard. And he gives him a hammer and a bunch of nails. And all I want you to do is get these nails out and smack them into the fence as hard as you can. Use that as your way of getting angry, right? So he does that. One time he gets angry, he comes out to the backyard and just smacks a bunch of nails into the fence.
Yeah.
Right? And cool. So he does that for a little while, and after a while he kind of starts filling up the fence a little bit. And so he gets curious, like, Dad, what's the point of this? It's like, well, tell you what, as an opposite thing, whenever you come away from a situation and you're not as angry and you feel like, you know what, before I got angry and lashed out at anyone, I'm going to take one nail out of the fence. So he does that. And over time, he kind of realizes, oh, well, this is, almost as therapeutic to just kind of take the nails out and take them out to the side. And so when he kind of got to the end of taking all the nails out, or maybe there's still a few nails left, he said, what was the point of this exercise? Well, son, you can look at this fence and you can look at all the times that you were angry and you lashed out, and you can see the mark that you left on people. And every time that you took a nail out, look at that as saying sorry to somebody. Yep. So even if you say sorry to somebody, you can still see the damage that you did to people. And that's the kind of metaphor, the analogy that he used. And that's something, again, I'm getting chills just thinking about it too. But
you sent one down my spine. I was like, oh.
I vividly remember.
It's so true.
Yeah, I vividly remember that story. So anytime I do get kind of angry, I think about just this fence and some hammers and nails. I'm very grateful that I've got a partner who is very good with me, because we've never had a yelling match ever in all the years we've been dating. Because she doesn't like raised voices, she doesn't like people yelling. So anytime we do have some kind of dispute or a little tiff, she'll know, like, Jeremy, you're raising your voice. I'm not going to talk to you if you do that. Obviously, in that time, someone's calling me out. It's like, oh, I'm not getting angry. I'm not raising my voice. But if someone says you are, it's like, well, maybe I am. Let's take a little bit of a breath. So that's my little nail in the fence story of kind of a little reminder to myself.
Yeah.
But you might have as well, Byron. You probably would have heard guys say, I hear this on League all the time. I hear people, when they're out and about all the time on the sports fields, they get frustrated or angry at something, and they're like, bro, don't worry, we've got this, just chill. And a very common thing a guy might say is, well, you shouldn't make me angry. You shouldn't get me angry in the first place. What's your thought about that?
It's the most ridiculous statement ever, because how is it, like, how can you be so unaware of your own emotional state that you're blaming other people for getting to that point?
Yeah.
Right. And sorry, I shouldn't say how could you, and I don't want to make that sound accusational, because it is you, unless you have been taught or you have been through experiences and learned what that actually looks like, you don't know.
Yeah.
So I will apologize to anyone who just got offended by that, because that's not what this is about. But it is not. It's never acceptable, though, to be like, oh, it's your fault that I am acting this way.
Yeah.
Right. And to try and justify poor actions off the back of that is like it clearly demonstrates a lack of learning. It clearly demonstrates a lack of empathy. And it's one of those things that fortunately is you can change and you can learn, but you need to be willing to accept the fact that if you're getting upset and you're making the people around you, you're damaging them like the fence and you're leaving the marks in the fence, that's on you, bro. Like, you're the one causing that, not anybody else, because you made the decision to take the nail and smash that into the fence. Right? That was your choice. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I don't think shifting the blame is ever going to be the solution to a problem like that.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where I feel as though, in terms of conflict resolution, a good friend would be able to come to you and be like, hey, Jeremy, like, the way that you're perhaps conducting yourself at the moment and the impact that you're having on people, let's have a talk about it, my guy. Like, you're so much better than this and you can do better than this. So, like, do you want to fix it, or do you want to talk about it? Because that's going to be a conflict in and of itself. But yeah, I don't like that term. What about you? You into that?
You explained it perfectly, I think. If someone says, oh, you shouldn't make me angry, like, well, bro, you're the one getting angry. We can't predict or we can't control how other people act, but we can control how we react to a situation. So us getting angry, 100% within our control, maybe not to get angry, but how we choose to deal with that emotion at that point in time.
Yeah.
That's 100% in your control. So I like what you said too, actually, about having a guy to pull you to the side and say, if you've got a good friend who can do that, you're blessed. Because I don't know how many people, I've got in my life, if I was in a emotional state where I had less control over my actions, could pull me to the side, hey man, this is what I'm kind of observing. Did you want to kind of talk about it? Did you want to come over, get a breath of fresh air with me, and we can chat? Because those are the kind of people you want having your back rather than egging you on, saying like, "Oh my god, look, he's getting angry."
Yeah,
that's
go get him, man, go get him,
go get him, fight him.
Is this not the action that we want? I feel like as though a lot of people find a person like that in their relationships.
Yeah.
So their significant other who is there to, like you said, you've got a wonderful partner in that she's able to help you in those sort of situations.
Yeah.
But I think as a male population, we can do a better job of helping each other too.
100%.
Because we understand sort of what I shouldn't say understand. We can empathize a little bit better with the situation that we might be going through. Again, everybody's experience is different, but men tend to have a proclivity towards aggression, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the testosterone in our system. And actually, I'm not going to. It's not just the testosterone in our system because people make their own decisions. But the fact that we have all these biological things that kind of, it's in the past, it's been beneficial to be aggressive.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go out and hunt, go out and fight for your tribe, go out and be the alpha male so you can have all the babies and do all the good things.
And protect against invaders from other lands.
Exactly.
Biologically, it makes sense that those were very useful traits. In the modern society, however, it definitely can
We don't need to go fight.
It can be very detrimental. It can be very detrimental.
Big time. We can help each other in that respect.
We should. And it's a good point you bring up too. Now, kind of moving on to the other side, being too passive. And I think this is where a lot of guys get very confused. It's like, because I don't want to be passive. I don't want people to walk over me. I don't want my girl to see me that I can't stand up for myself. So I got to be more aggressive. I need to be more out there. I need to, stand up for those things.
I got to stomp on people when they
stomp on people.
I got to right the wrongs.
So I think it can be just as difficult to go from, I'm too aggressive. I need to learn how to manage that. It can be just as difficult to be, I'm not standing up for myself enough, and I need to do that more. But obviously, it's very obvious why people don't want to be passive. It's very obvious because, you want to stand up for yourself. You want to stand up for what you believe in. You want to be able to do the things that you want to do without being ridiculed by somebody else and, taking it on a constant level. And I think it comes back all the way back to childhood too. You've got the bullies, and the best thing people say is, stand up to your bullies. It can be very difficult for various reasons for a lot of different people, right? And so that can definitely influence how we act in our adult lives too. If the boss says, I need you to do this unreasonable task and have it done very quickly.
And because I'm your boss, you're going to go do it.
You're going to go do it. And
they have power over you.
And it's like, well, my job's on the line. Guess I'm going to do it, even though I'm going to miss out on everything else that I'd planned to do tonight with my family and friends, and also that concert I was planning to go to. Well, I guess I'll just say next time. Yeah. So Byron, before I go into my story, has that ever been something that you've had to do where you've had to kind of just swallow it, and I guess I'll have to just accept this unreasonable thing from someone else?
Well, the interesting thing for me is that, like, early on, as I said, I got a proclivity towards, getting a bit fired up. But I learned early on that acting on that can be very detrimental.
Right.
It can have really severe consequences, or it did for me. So I learned to mask that and then kind of suppress that. And that made me a very angry person outside of
on the inside
situations. Yeah. But as I grew into being an adult, I suppose, there were definitely times where that ability to mask my displeasure for something, or if I didn't agree with things, I would bite down on. And I just like, I would still feel fired up about it, but I would be like, okay, we're gonna swallow that pill. So number of times, I actually when I was working for a bank, I put in a request for leave to go do my university exams with my direct boss and my manager, and I didn't make it apparent enough, apparently, that these were exams for university and my education. If I didn't turn up to them, I was going to fail.
Yep.
Anyway, he's like, "No, I can't grant you time off. We need you here in the branch." I failed a full semester of university because I didn't go to any of my exams.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I just better keep my job. Exactly like what you just said. And it wasn't necessarily his fault because, as I said, I could have done a better job of delivering some context, perhaps, or I don't know, when he did come back, I could have said, hey, like, no, my education is really important here. And that whole situation, as I said, resulted in me failing.
Wow, there you go.
I was like, oh, fuck, that's not good. But yeah, like moments like that I have certainly had, and it was interesting because it was certainly in my younger, like my early 20s and stuff. So I didn't really have the confidence to be able to, and I had no real method or structure for using that. I'm not going to like that energy, that frustrated and energetic side of being, worked up. I had no way of being able to deliver that in a constructive manner. And because I couldn't do it constructively, I knew that if I didn't do it constructively, at that point, I probably would have lost my job if I had acted purely on impulse.
Yeah.
So
punch out the general manager and it's like, this is what you get.
Yeah, I told you I needed to do this. But yeah, so that passive stuff it doesn't mean that you necessarily are passive. Like some people do tend towards being a pacifist, but you can learn to not speak up as well, or you can be trained not to speak up.
Yeah.
And that gets really, really tricky. So yeah, it doesn't mean you're a weak person, by the way.
That's a very direct example of like, Bill, this is what happens if you let people walk over you.
Yeah,
Coming from my background, it's going to be not quite as direct as that, but the more I think about it, the more I see how it kind of runs onto other parts of my life, which has definitely hindered me. I think the biggest thing for an introvert like myself that I had to really learn about, and why was such an important thing to be able to assert yourself a lot more. One is obviously to prevent situations like that from happening, but you've got such in your mind, you don't want to make anyone else uncomfortable. You don't want to make anyone else be inconvenienced. You don't want to offend anyone else. You don't want to make them have a bad impression of you. And so the easiest thing to do is just keep your head down and not disturb them, right?
Yeah.
But as a result, that does mean that I missed out on a lot of career opportunities. I missed out on a lot of opportunities to make friends with people. I missed out on a lot of opportunities to quite simply have a good dating life because I was too afraid of starting this conversation with pretty girls because I didn't want to inconvenience them or look creepy. And you've just got this giant mindset of just being stuck in your head of, I don't want to inconvenience anyone. And so the biggest lesson I learned there, to kind of go from super passive into slightly less passive, I did have to overshot the runway. I didn't get aggressive, but I definitely put myself out there in a way that wasn't the most charming or the most smooth. It was definitely a lot more awkward, but it was a lot better than just not doing anything.
Yeah.
And so on a sliding scale of aggression to passiveness, I think there's also, maybe it correlates a little bit, a scale of I care too much about what people think about me to I don't care what people think about me. And again, it's healthy to have a balance somewhere in the middle where, I guess in your case, well, boss, I don't care if you think that I'm going to look bad for the branch or whatever. I need to do my exams, and that's what works for me. And in my case, well, I don't care if I look a bit weird or this guy shooting his shot to talk to this pretty girl in the middle of the university campus. I'm going to do it regardless of what these strangers think about me.
Yes.
Right? So in terms of passiveness, it requires a lot more of an I don't give a fuck kind of mentality. to really start the gears turning of helping yourself a lot more. And I guess on the aggression side, it's a little bit more of a different solution in that way, because there's a few different factors involved, I think, and a few different people who can directly impact in a major way.
Very much so. Oh man, gosh, I hadn't thought about that in so long. By the way, like I just remember afterwards talking to like the course conveners and stuff.
Yeah.
Like as I emailed them, I was like, "Look, I know this is what happened, but is there any chance we could fix this?"
Retake the exam.
And they're like, "No, dude, I'm sorry." Like it was pretty bad.
Oh man, that's rough.
It was pretty rough. It was very disheartening at the time too. Which I mean is something that when you talked about how much of an impact it has on your life, like all the things you could have missed out on.
Yeah.
Right. And all the opportunities that went by. And, you know, people might talk about in terms of the universe, perhaps you just weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
Right. But, you know, that who knows? And going down the what if sort of routes is really dangerous. But learning this stuff as soon as you can is so useful. Right. If I could have talked to 20-year-old me and been like, Byron, right, let me give you some quick little insights in what it's like to balance aggression and pacifism. Then, who knows? Maybe I would be running the Commonwealth Bank right now. I don't know,
dude. It would have been completely different. It would have been like, oh well, Jeremy, you know what happened if you actually did go and talk to those people instead of wishing they would talk to you, or wishing that magical situation happened. You might be running the Commonwealth Bank too. Who knows?
We're going to run it together. But if you're out there listening, right, and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, regardless of where you are at in your life, if you're 35, you're 18, you know, you're 24, like the point is now is the time to actually figure this stuff out, right? This is if you're here listening right now, which means you're aware enough that you want to do something about it, right? Don't wait and wonder. It is like it's taken me, gosh, what? I mean, I was going to say like my adult life. So how many years is that? Something like 17.
17 years, yep.
Whatever it looks like. It's taken me a long time to figure out how to deal with these things. But it was just a process. And it was that once I understood or was given that information, I could then make the changes, which I think like we'll segue a little bit into what is the difference between being assertive and being aggressive.
Yeah,
right? Right. So if you are trying to go through the process of learning this stuff and you know, you're like, all right, Byron, what do I do? You know, do I just let out all my anger? Do I like raise the fist and shake it at somebody?
How do I get my point across in a way that shows that I know what I'm talking about? I'm standing up for myself. But at what point does it become a nail in the fence versus, you know, you actually sharing that analogy? Oh, we're going to use it.
At what point does it become a nail in the fence?
Yeah.
So what do you reckon? What do you reckon? Nail in the fence.
Balancing assertiveness versus aggressiveness. So I believe first and foremost is we can even kind of put this in a conversation where sometimes when you are having a discussion with someone, sometimes there is no best resolution, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately not.
Yeah. So I'd like to think that when you have a discussion with people, everyone is a reasonable, considerate, empathetic human being. Unfortunately,
can we come back to this then and how to deal with people who are not?
Yes, well, that's going to be a whole other thing.
Yeah, okay, good.
Let's start with assertiveness and aggressiveness. What's going to be better? So I personally believe that if you're aggressive, you raise your voice straight up, because I think a very good example is any office I've worked in. There's a HR department for a reason, and they're the ones who will, for the most part, be reasonable. They will listen and they'll have a discussion with you about why certain actions or behaviors, either of yourself or another colleague, have been not good or not productive. And from that point, how can we address this conflict and have a good outcome? That's typically the point of HR, because they're there to help people who typically don't have these skills to come to a resolution. So first and foremost, aggressive versus assertive. I think the second that you start yelling, you've already lost.
Crossed the line.
That's already crossed a line. So if you need to raise your voice to get your point across, learn to use your words better. That's about as good as it can get. So to me, that's a very telling sign. The second you raise your voice is the first step of too far. And I think anything past that you can think is more than raising your voice. It could be physical intimidation, threatening to hit something, getting up up in their face like this.
No, Jeremy, please.
Yeah, that's also aggressive. It's a point in which you're making someone else feel uncomfortable physically or emotionally, in which you make them feel uncomfortable. But that's just my observation. Do you have anything to add to that, Byron? That's what counts as aggression and not assertiveness? Let's start with aggression. What counts as aggression?
Well, I mean, it comes from a place of like hostility.
Yeah.
You're not approaching it with any intent of like incorporating the other person's perspective. You're purely there to assert your dominance and assert your point of view and you're right. And as soon as you go down that track, you don't even have to raise your voice at that point. You can be aggressive without ever raising a decibel.
I agree. Right?
Yeah. And intent is, I think, the most important part. We probably talked about intent across all different things.
Yeah.
But if your intention is to just dominate a person, like what are you looking for? Are you just looking for a bunch of submissive slaves who do what you want all the time, and are you just going to be on the power trip 24/7? Because if that's the case, like, I don't want to be around a person like that.
No one does.
And you'll find a lot of people who push back on it. But assertiveness is you're much more well thought out, I think, in terms of where your value lies. Where, like, you understand your part in the situation. You are not perfect. You will have made mistakes.
Yeah.
Right. But other people have also made mistakes, and it's okay to have a constructive conversation about what that looks like. And provided that you're open and willing to hear it, then you can deliver your point of view without being an asshole.
Yeah.
Right? That's assertive.
That's a good way of looking at it. I think the big part you mentioned there is being able to be open to listening to the other person's point of view and then being able to deliver your side of things. And hopefully you come to an understanding, hey, look, I think here's a good example, Byron. Say you and I were having a tiff over, I don't know, Pokemon cards, And I said, man, you open cards like this and it sucks, right? And you're like, no, man, this is the best way to open cards. What the fuck? You're wrong. In fact, you suck at opening cards.
Yeah, you're crap at it. Do you know how many bad pulls you've had, Jeremy?
Oh, just because of that. Okay.
You're so bad at this.
If I was aggressive, I'd be like, you know what? Fuck you, man. You suck. You can't open cards worth crap. I'm the alpha at opening Pokemon cards. Don't you dare come into my space. Right?
Dude, you're so delusional. What are you talking about?
So this is a very aggressive discussion. Call it a fight if you want, right? Yeah. Something more assertive would sound a bit more like this. Like, all right, Byron, why do you like opening cards like that? Tell me, man. Like, what do you get from it? And you might be like,
it's very brain satisfying.
Brain satisfying.
Yeah, I like the way that it tickles my pickle.
Okay, nice. Your pickle gets tickled. That's nice, man. Look, I'm just going to let you know, I think what you're doing is, if it makes you happy, cool. But just from my experience, you're damaging the cards and you're making it not really cool. Okay, so this is the right way to open cards and
without damaging them.
Without damaging it. And look, that's just what I wanted to put forward to you. And but you know what?
I don't want to damage my cards, Jeremy.
Don't want to damage your cards. You know what though? It's a bit of a weird example because at the end of the day, it's going to be like, all right, man, you tickle your pickle your way, I'll tickle my pickle my way, and no one gets hurt. But if it came to
I was going to say, if I'm actually like, because the criteria for me there is, if I don't want to damage my cards, then perhaps I'm open to changing my way of doing things.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
Because the value of the damage versus the value of tickling my pickle are two different things.
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe one is weighted higher than the other. If I'm like, I don't care if I damage my cards, Jeremy.
Yeah.
You can then accept that, all right, if you're happy to damage your cards, while I would never do that for my own, the fact that you're happy, you do you, brother.
Do you, man. So,
but otherwise,
I was gonna say that's an example where the result of if you agree with me or not, it doesn't really matter, right? But say there was a discussion where there was a stake for both of us of an outcome.
Yeah.
Say, for example, we were in the grocery store together, and you hit me with the trolley.
Ooh.
Right? It's like, oh, my ass is sore. They'd be like,
is it?
No, it is not in a good way either. So I went up to say, "Whoa, bro, what the heck? Hit me with your trolley."
Yeah.
And maybe you're one of those guys who's like, "Oh well, get out of my way then."
Yeah.
I'd have been like, "Oh well, okay." Oh, man, this is interesting because there's so many different discussions of why there can be conflict And I think a very good thing to raise is, should you even get into conflict in the first place? Because I believe personally that 90% of conflicts are not really necessary. It could be
it doesn't achieve anything.
Doesn't achieve anything. Whether or not you win the argument or something, right?
Well, the funny thing is, on that note, I often, so like for instance, if I go out clubbing, right, I don't go clubbing, but if I go out and it's like people are drunk, there's lots happening, shit's everywhere. I have said in the past that the risk of a dude getting into a fight and something bad happening is not worth the risk. I mean, it's not worth the payoff of being like, yeah, I'm a big, strong man. Right? Because if I come across somebody, we bump shoulders, he doesn't take it too kindly, and I'm like, hey, bro, fuck off. Like, that was really rude. And then he turns around and king hits me in the face and I die. Was that worth me
being right?
Was that worth me doing it?
Yeah, you were right. That was rude, and you needed to make your point clear.
Yeah.
That you were right.
Again, not to say that it's like you shouldn't be like, hey, man, like, is everything good? But at that point, you're starting to like engage in a conversation where it can go two ways. And in fact, I did it. So when I was in the UK, first thing my brother said to me is, do not upset anybody because everyone carries a knife here and you will get stabbed. Right? And we go into a Sainsbury, which is like a little shopping center.
Yep.
I'm with my brother and his girlfriend, and we're walking through, and this dude is like watching my brother's girlfriend. I was like, what the fuck? Like, what's this creep doing? Like, he was looking at it really creepily, like. And I'm standing there, I'm like looking at this guy thinking, in my head, I'm going, he's not going to do anything, right? Anyway, he sees her. After he's finished looking at her, he then looks at me and then starts to turn away, and then he turns back. He's like, what are you looking at? I was like, dude, I'm just making sure you're not staring at my brother's girlfriend. And he's like, you got a problem with me, man. You think you're a big man. Like, you think you're real big with all your muscles. And I was carrying some like pork mince and some pineapple and shit. And he's like, you with your pork mince and like, what are you going to do about it? I was like, bro, I'm not going to do it. Like, we're not doing anything about it. But the fact of the matter is, I didn't like the way you were staring at my brother's girlfriend.
Yeah.
And like, I'm here to just make sure nothing further happens. And he's like, well, do you want to? I was like, bro, I'm just here to get my pineapple and pork. And if you've got no problem, I've got no problem. And he's like, yeah. And I think it was the whole pork thing that kind of threw him off a little bit in the pineapple. Because he sort of had to stop. And then I was like, look, if there's no problem here, we're good. And he's like, all right. And then security came over. Turns out he wasn't really allowed in the shop because they were like, no, he needs to get out. I was like, nah, he's fine. He's fine. He's like, no, he's not fine. He's been stealing from the store. He needs to leave. And I was like, oh shit. Well, good luck, guys. I'm going to go. I'm going to go toddle off this way. But my point is, like, that situation, if he had pulled out a knife and stabbed me in that shop, maybe I was dead.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, there was no, like, while I was looking out for my brother, all he was doing was looking.
Yeah.
Right? Or my brother's girlfriend, I should say. All he was doing is looking. He never made an advance. He never touched her, never said anything creepy. And perhaps the whole situation could have been avoided if I was like, all right, we're all good. And I just toddled off. But I stayed there and I watched a little bit too long. And then that invited a confrontation.
Yeah.
Now, it's just one of those things where was it actually worth it? And I would say 100% not.
Yeah.
Right? Because in another world, maybe I'm dead on the floor. Fortunately, in this world, I'm not.
Yeah.
But, that aggression, and as I said before, that proclivity towards aggression, like, is what got me into a situation that I didn't need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you made a really good point of, is it worth it? Because we're going to come into conflict with random strangers throughout our lifetime. And whenever you feel yourself getting heated or someone raises their voice or whatever it is, you know when a conflict's, possibly starting. A big thing to ask yourself is this argument with this random stranger going to be worth it? And you could bet 99.9% of the time it will not be worth it.
With randoms, absolutely not. Like, what in what world do you gain from
anything?
Telling someone else that they're wrong and that they wronged you? Like, genuinely, the whole idea of turning your other cheek, like turning the other cheek, is kind of makes sense with randoms.
Yeah.
But to then take that into the context of, if I'm with you, right, and it's between you and me, and we have something, right, or I'm with a partner and we have a relationship that we're working on, or I'm in the workplace, right, and it's going to affect my quality of life from here on out, or whatever situation you're in, then the answer, you start to weigh it up and you're like, well, yeah, I need to stand up for my right at work, or my partner's being a bit of a dick and I need to, like, have this conversation with them, or, Jeremy, you're being an asshole. It's like, bro, you're being really mean to everyone.
Absolutely.
Bro. Like, what are you doing? You're being mean to me.
That's a real good point to bring up. Is so for strangers, people you don't even know, having a conflict with someone you don't know, you don't care about, it's never worth it because there's nothing to gain from resolving a conflict. Perhaps your ego might be rubbed a little bit, right? But in the case that you said, if it's someone who you care about, someone you have a connection with, where their actions or their attitudes will directly impact your quality of life, absolutely, there needs to be a discussion and some potential conflicts there. Yep. So that being said, now that we've gone through, all right, it's not worth bringing up any conflict. So my parents were right there. Yeah, just walk away, man. Just walk away from something because there's nothing to gain.
Yeah.
If it is with someone who you are close to, it could be your family member, your partner, someone from work, one of your colleagues. What's the best way to approach that conflict? So we've already talked about, be assertive, not aggressive. Talk about how it's going to benefit you. But what's the best way to approach conflicts in that way, and what should we kind of look out for? This is a big thing.
Yeah, I feel like I've had a little bit of experience over the years with this one now. But just quickly, one little tidbit is if in the stranger situation, if your life is threatened, then by God, then that's the situation where that's the 1 in 100. We're talking about the 1%.
Yep.
But I pray for all of you that you never end up in a situation where your life is on the line.
Of course.
But coming back to this, how do you approach it when there is a connection and there is a reason to have conflict?
Yep.
First and foremost, avoid giving in to the dark side, right? Do not just let that emotion, whether it be to run away, like the fear or that aggression, take over.
Yep.
Because the instant you do that, any value that could be gained from this conflict is reduced to zero, right? So that's my first point. So it's stopping yourself in your tracks and really looking at it. Now you can be upset.
Yeah,
right. I'm
normal.
not saying people should push that to the side, but with that upsetness, you want to think, all right, how am I going to make sure that I deliver this in a constructive way? How can I start a conversation in a manner that doesn't have the other person feel like I'm attacking them?
Mm-hmm.
How can we have a good intention for an outcome be possible? So I think about, there was a time when some old friends of mine did something that was extremely upsetting. And I remember reading the text message and I was furious. I was like, how dare you? Right. And to the point where I packed up my stuff at work, I put my laptop in my bag and I drove 30 minutes all the way back to where I needed to. Yeah, I was like, but in that moment, I was like, you know what? This is something that, this is not about me telling them how wrong they've made me. I've made mistakes in this situation as well.
Yeah.
This is about making sure that the behavior that I just witnessed wasn't acceptable. I'll accept my part in what's happening. And then I want to provide an opportunity for them to hear me out and I'll hear them out. Right. So I walked into that situation still being like, oh man, I'm feeling some kind of way about this. But it was, hey guys, I really do not appreciate the way that this has been handled. And what just happened is certainly unacceptable. Right. So I'm going to call that out first and foremost.
Yep.
And now we're going to talk about how we got here. Right. I'm going to give you my side of things. I want to hear your side of things. And then we're going to have a discussion and see where it goes. Yep. Right. And so it was pretty heated. It was pretty tense. But to your point, I never had to raise my voice. I never called anybody names or told them they were stupid.
Well done.
It's not about, thank you.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
Yep.
And it was I made my feelings on the situation apparent without saying it's your fault that I feel this way. It's I will admit to my stuff and I'll own my actions. This is what it looks like. How do you feel? What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Let me hear it. Give it to me straight because we're here. We're in this uncomfortable state now. Let's talk it through and see if we can't resolve it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I was proud to walk away from that situation, even though it didn't quite pan out the way that I guess everybody hoped.
Yeah.
But never once did I think, that was bad.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we did it, and no one should feel shit apart from the fact that we're not really friends anymore.
Yeah.
But no one was put down. So that's how I would approach things. And that's how I approach things every time. It's yes, feel it, but understand that your actions shouldn't be ruled by that emotion.
Yeah. I think particularly, I think you did, you played that out beautifully. The way you described it, you didn't get aggressive, but you didn't shy away from the fact that it was hard to approach. Because I think at the end of the day, when a conflict does happen, it's going to be, this is my point of view, this is your point of view. Let's see if we can understand each other, where we're both coming from, and work out a way forward that works for both of us, that we're both happy with. And sometimes there is a way forward. That's the best result. You say, oh, wow, I stuffed up. No, I also stuffed up. And I'm sorry, man. Oh, I'm sorry too. All right, cool.
Yeah,
going forward,
hug it out.
How about we try to do this? Cool. I agree with that. Thank you for talking with me. That's the best case. Worst case is, oh, my bad. How do you feel about it? It's like, well, I'm not sorry at all. This is all your fault. And you're going to have people like that. And sometimes there is no resolution to something like that. Sometimes you walk away and you're no longer connecting because of something that's happened. And for someone who is introverted or doesn't like conflict, I think that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of losing that connection. They would rather have this strange, I guess I'll take the hit. I guess I'll feel bad about it, but it means that we get to stay friends.
Ugh.
But the thing I think that I had to learn to realize is, how much is that friendship actually worth if you feel like you're the one who always has to take the blame? If you're the one who always has to bring up these situations and they can't admit any fault or any wrong to it. And for a fact that, they had a hand in not being right here all the time either.
Yeah.
So, please.
No. I was just going to say that the interesting thing about those situations is it doesn't necessarily make either party right or wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. The other person, if they decide not to accept your point of view, or even if they do accept your point of view, but they're still upset about it, it doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad person, right? It just means that you're not quite fit for each other at that particular point in time. And you know what? That's okay. Like, that's why we go through this relationship cycle with people and we figure out, all right, are we actually good for each other? And I don't even just mean in relationships. I mean anywhere.
Yeah.
It's the same in workplaces, right? Are we fit for each other? Do we actually vibe?
Is this job a good fit for me or not? Is this friendship group a good fit for me or not? That's why we go through different friend groups as time goes on. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you suck at keeping friends. It just means that, as we grow older, as we learn more about the world, as we learn more about ourselves, our values definitely change. And so some friends are going to also change with us. They're going to maintain those values. Some people, their values will change in a way that we don't get along with anymore. But it just means, we will meet friends who do align with our values at that point in time. So if you find yourself in a place where, hey, I don't keep friends because I keep changing, or, I don't seem to be able to keep friends for whatever reason, then it's not exactly a bad thing. But I like to think of long friendships as either a good thing or a bad thing. Good thing because, hey, we're both growing older, both growing wiser, and we're growing in the same direction because we're both changing, but we seem to keep getting along. Awesome. Or I'm growing older, I'm not changing, and you're getting older, and you're not changing. We're kind of keeping the same values. So I'd like to think getting older and your values changing or solidifying is a good thing, but I guess it's different for everyone.
Yeah. And just to take it back to the whole resolution part when you're going through that. So you have the conversation, and again, whatever outcome happens, I think where people really get stuck, and I saw a good example of this recently, is people want to win. They want to walk away feeling righteous and the victor of that situation and be like, I was right. That person still can't see how right I was, and they're the problem. And again, what value is there in that to anyone?
Yeah.
Right? You get to sit there and sit on your little pedestal and think, oh, well, but I guarantee you those same people who move towards that in their resolution style, they're probably the loneliest people.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because they're either surrounded by yes men who just do their bidding because, oh, it can't upset Jeremy. Oh, Jesus. I'll just, you staunch me, bro. It can't upset him, so I'll just, I'll play along and we'll play the nice guy.
Yeah.
Or they've pushed everybody away that ever wanted to be close to them, because how can you, I don't want to ever be a person like that. And I can't stand being around people like that. Again, doesn't make them a bad person. It just means they've got some learning to do, and they can do it. It's just up to them whether they want to. So winning sucks.
Winning can suck. I think it might sound weird, but learning to lose, learning to be a good loser is going to help you immensely. And some people, I know for a fact, cannot stand it. They must be right. They can never be wrong. They must always have the final say in things. But I think it's like you said, I certainly don't like being around people like that. And they're going to be on their pedestal by themselves. And
that's right. It's very lonely up on top of that pedestal. But you know what? A win, you can reframe the whole notion of winning in a conflict by exactly what you said, learning to lose.
Yeah.
And then what did I gain out of it? Like, did I gain something valuable here? Did I learn something about myself or another? Did I stand up for my point of view and my position in a respectful manner, and it was heard or not heard?
Yeah.
But I conducted myself in a way that would make, myself proud.
Yeah.
If yes, guess what? You won too. Like, you're winning. That is winning at life and being a good person.
Here's something I've learned. There's two ways about this. So there's people who's never going to be able to be wrong, or they know everything, and you will find those people very quickly and very easily. So whenever there is someone like that, just nod. It's like, oh yeah, man, this is the fact. And I know they're wrong. It's like, oh yeah, man, absolutely, yeah, I'm gonna go.
You know what's funny is your head is doing this while you're saying yes. So there's a complete disconnect between your body and your mind. You're like, I'm saying yes out verbally, but my brain, like my body's saying no.
Yeah, man. Oh, absolutely. No. However, when it comes to, I always try. This is my new, and I make this as a challenge to anybody. Perfect. If you have met somebody new, and maybe you don't know them very well, and they want to tell you about something. A good test is, for example, oh, Byron, Pokemon cards. Do you know much about Pokemon cards, man?
I know a bit.
Little bit? All right, cool.
Yeah.
Do you know much about this particular set called, like, Sparking Pikachu, the set?
No, actually.
Oh, cool. No, like, can I tell you a little bit about the set? Is that cool?
Yeah, I'm down.
Cool. That's one way to introduce something. Do it in little bits, like, instead of going like, hey, Byron, let me tell you about the set Sparking Pikachu, this whole set, let me tell you, I'm an expert. This is the set. It goes like this. Before you even get there, just ask in little tidbits. And a good way of doing it, say you knew about the set, I don't know, Cool Charmander, the set, Cool Charmander. I was like, hey, man, do you know much about the Cool Charmander set?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Like, do you know much about this part of it? Like the really complicated part?
Yeah, totally, dude.
Totally. Absolutely. Okay, cool. You can do that. And then, anyway, let me tell you more about it again anyway. Someone who's unaware.
Or you can maybe figure out just how much you understand.
How much you understand, yeah.
And maybe you teach me something.
Exactly.
And I teach you something.
A big challenge that I've done for myself is, say I do know something about Cool Charmander, the set. Right? Yeah. I might be like, oh, I know this about it, but that's about all my knowledge. Or I might say, like, no, in fact, I don't know about it,
Yeah.
The second I say, for example, it might come to something like political. It might come to something about, I don't know, the housing crisis. It might come to something about Cool Charmander, the set.
Yeah.
Just me saying, you know what? I don't know. Tell me what cool fact were you going to tell me today?
Yeah.
That has helped me learn a lot. Instead of going, Sparking Pikachu, the set. You might be like, yeah, I know a lot about the set. If I just said, no, I don't know a lot about it. If I do that, it opens me up to learning versus closing myself up by thinking, yeah, I know everything about all of these different things.
Yeah.
So that's my way of starting to learn how to, in a weird way, lose by not knowing everything. Yes. It's not me losing. It's just me being open to learning something different. So,
which is a win.
It's a win. That's right.
That's the challenge for the listeners at home. Like, can you introduce a topic in small sections and let people come on a journey with you?
It's a collaborative thing. Not I want to talk over you and be the boss and be the alpha and be the top dog. No, just grow together. That's the way it goes. But
okay.
Anyway, this hour has blown by, Byron. I look at the clock. I'm like, oh my god, why? I just want to keep talking.
Can we just go for 2 more minutes?
All right, let's go. Give me your point on Cool Charmander, the set.
Oh, I think it's amazing. No, what I was going to say is, like, in terms of the whole aggression versus assertiveness and conflicts in life and working to do through them, it's kind of like anything where, you need to have a little bit of understanding about what it looks like so you're not completely unprepared. And then when the situation does occur, you're still going to fuck it up. You're still going to make mistakes. And so it's a learning process.
Yeah.
Right? And then after each conflict, I always try and sit there and think, did I actually do it? Did I do that in a good way? right? And then if it's possible, you might not be able to ask the people you're arguing with for feedback. But, if they do perhaps give you some feedback, it's not a bad thing. But yeah, it's a really tricky thing to do, especially as a guy, because you don't want to look like no one wants to see dudes just abusing other people for one. Like we don't need any more of that, whether it's a man on man or man on girl or whatever. I shouldn't say girl, I should say woman. We just don't need more conflict in the world in an unhealthy way. Like healthy conflict is
a good thing.
I think very much tied to and it's tied to that healthy masculinity point. It's just intent. Are you open to actually being wrong? Right?
That's a big one.
Because if you're not open to being wrong, then you need a smack bottom.
You need a smack bottom. You need to learn that there's a potential for you to be wrong. Even if you're 100% right, just be open to the idea that you can learn something from having a discussion with someone. So,
and if people don't agree, it's okay. You don't have to bash them over the head for it, right? If they don't agree with you and you can't find that resolution point that is mutually beneficial for the way forward together, then you go your separate ways. And that's where it ends. Don't drag it out and be like, oh, have you heard about Jeremy? He's an absolute dog. Like, let me make you hate him before you've even had a chance to meet him because screw that guy. Like, what?
I hate that.
Why are you involving people in shit?
Oh, man, I hate it. I actually like what you did with that guy over in England. It's like, hey, man, do we have a problem?
Yeah.
Because I don't have a problem with you. So if we don't have a problem, man, have a good day.
And that was actually the key point, is leading with I don't have a problem with you, but is this a problem?
Yeah.
Right? Because I wanted to make my intent around the fact that I'm not looking for a fight here. Like I really, I'm not afraid to scrap, right? And especially if he did pull out a knife, I'm going to fight for my damn life.
Yeah.
But, I'm not afraid to, I didn't want to make it apparent that I was just there to challenge him. Right? So I was like, hey man, are we good? Can we be good? Let's be good.
Let's be good.
Great.
Excellent.
On our way.
Yeah.
So,
good. I think knowing how to de-escalate a situation in a way that, again, 99.9% of conflicts don't matter. How about we just make this potential conflict into something that doesn't matter for both of us? That's a good skill in itself. So
I swear it comes down to removing your ego again, but
all comes back to ego. All comes back to ego. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's conflict resolution in a nutshell. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you got some value from it. Don't hit the fence. Don't put holes in the fence.
Yeah, please don't leave marks in the fence.
Don't leave marks in the fence.
Think about that damage.
Think about the damage, man. Think about the damage. I bet you someone's going to come back to me and he's like, oh, Jeremy, I can just patch up the holes in the fence with some filler. That's not the point. It's not the point. Anyway.
That the fence felt pain to begin with.
Oh, God. Anyway. If you've enjoyed our vibe, if you've enjoyed this episode, if you like what we do and you want to kind of support us so you'll hear more, we can improve our equipment, and maybe one day Byron and I will get to, long-term basis, get to record in the same city, in the same room.
You guys can make that happen.
Make that happen. If you want to do that, head over to our Patreon, Just Men Podcast on Patreon, or you can look at the description in the episode below. So see where you can support us. It's basically the cost of a coffee a month. That's all it is. But
come interact with this on our socials as well. We want to hear from everybody. If you're listening and you agree with this, you think we're full of BS, or you love what we're saying, we'd love to hear from you. So jump on TikTok or Instagram, shoot us a message, and
let's get chatting. Yeah.
Yep.
Otherwise, good episode, Byron. I enjoyed our chat tonight. It's very good. Very well done.
It was fun.
Well done.
Scary topic, but it was good fun.
We'll do it again next week.
We sure will.
Excellent.
Let's do it.
Okay, thanks very much for listening in. We'll see you next week, guys.
We love ya.
Goodbye.
Bye.